Factorio is a relatively easy game. That is why today I have brought with me two absolute professionals at the game to try and beat one of the hardest world settings. What I've done is I've gone and turned all the biter spawn options all the way up. Meaning there's a ton of bases, the bases are huge, and they're pretty much constantly attacking us as soon as pollution hits them. Additionally, we spawned in a desert, meaning there's pretty much no trees around to help us. The problem with having three absolute noobs working on a giant factory is that 1. We have no idea about any ratios besides the absolute most basic ones. Secondly, pretty much all of us are horrible at track management, meaning that if this base doesn't turn into a plate of spaghetti within 2 hours, we would be extremely lucky. Regardless, we started working on a furnace stack. You better appreciate this while you can, because this is pretty much the end of a nice looking base. From here on out, everything gets infinitely worse. Biters still weren't attacking us, so we got to work on the basics, primarily making our furnace stack larger. In the early game, you need an absolutely abhorrent amount of iron compared to copper, so we just made one furnace stack for copper, while we kept upgrading the iron one. Much like someone who actually lives in the desert, we constantly suffered from iron deficiency. Alongside that, we pretty much had zero wood to make electric posts with. We were pretty much working as fast as we can to get everything done. This was of course not fast enough, considering we had pretty much zero iron anywhere. I decided I should double stack our iron production. After all, we really needed more iron. Now with enough iron to actually do something, we got started on making our main trains. We decided to split up the two main trains into 4. Essentially, half the resources were gonna be going exclusively into science production for the time. We decided to start making the mall. Last time I did this, we took quite a while to get a mall started, and it was painful having to play without it. I started off by automating the things that take the longest to craft in your inventory, namely circuits and inserters. I decided to check our map. Our pollution was still pretty far away from the nearest biter nest, so I assumed we should be fine without defenses for a little while. Now with inserters fully automated, I continued expanding on the furnace stack, as we still didn't have enough iron plate production, only for us to get hit with power problems. After sorting that out, we went back to upgrading our furnace stack. We still didn't have enough iron. We started building labs as we knew biter attacks were just around the corner at this point. Now with a full lab setup, we quickly started researching defenses. Walls and gun turrets were the first to be made. I also started working on automating some tracks. After all, it was much easier than to always have to build them in my inventory. Now that we had them, I decided to automate gun turrets. It was much better to have them and not need them than to need them and not have them. I then realized we didn't have enough gears here. Primarily, it was because we didn't have enough iron. And we didn't have enough iron because we just didn't. With our iron problems, I decided we should double the iron production once again. I copied and pasted another furnace stack and got to work on it. I first had to create some more track spaghetti in order to have all of these supply lines connected to the furnaces. Midway through, however, I decided to randomly go and build some hard points for no apparent reason. Getting interrupted by other things is a very common thing to happen in this run. Quite often I'll be doing one thing only to have to go and do another. For the time being, I used pipes instead of walls since we still didn't even have that automated. I proceeded to go immediately back to the furnace stack. We really only knew where one biter nest was, so I didn't know where to defend from and where we would get attacked from first. I'm not even sure I can call it a biter nest since it's more like a hive mind. And just like that, they were already here. I looked at what was happening and it was pretty bad. I completely forgot to defend anywhere besides where I knew biters would come from, which obviously resulted in disaster. We now knew that we would need to set up a perimeter as fast as possible. I started setting up some turret hardpoints while my buddies went and tried to automate walls. Things were looking pretty bad. Biters were starting to come in from all sides and we had barely gotten any progress done on automating walls. For the time being, I just had to manually reload our hard points and pray that would be enough. Having to make ammo definitely wasn't helping out our iron situation either. Eventually, we started making walls. It wasn't particularly efficient, but as long as we had enough to make a perimeter, I would be fine. Unfortunately, we definitely didn't have enough to make a perimeter. This crafting setup was horribly slow. To make matters worse, the biters decided they should eat all our stone production. I figured my buddies would be able to take care of it, but apparently not. As if eating all of our walls wasn't enough, they also decided to go after the ammo production, leaving us back at square one. And there goes the chest full of walls. You know, biters might not seem too intelligent, but actually they've just made some genius plays. Essentially, they've somehow managed to target our ammo production and our wall production, meaning that we can't build our front line just yet. Somehow they seem to be even smarter than my teammates. This was no longer a joke. Things were actually starting to get intense. I had to start focusing on building the perimeter. Unfortunately, our wall production was still absolutely disgraceful. top of that, I also found myself having to rebuild a lot of things, primarily around the mall where we were attacked. Meanwhile, my friends started reconstructing the walled production. At last, we could start processing steel. After steel, we could get ourselves some better furnaces. These would help increase our production by a lot. And right now, we were in a race against time. If we didn't get these walls up in time, we would probably just die. After about half an hour straight of working, the outer perimeter was almost complete. We could finally start working on something besides defenses. I realized yellow ammo wasn't gonna be enough soon, so I decided to start working on automating red ammo. In order to even get red ammo, we actually needed steel, so I had to go work on that first. Now that we had steel, I had to start working on the ammo. Alright, let's get this over with. All we need to do is build our little perimeter and then we'll be safe for the most part. However, in order to get these turrets up and running, we should probably get red ammo, which I haven't actually worked on. Mainly because we just don't have enough iron production. I did, however, research steel furnaces, so it's time to start upgrading our furnace stacks. Another easy way to increase your furnace performance is just by changing your belts to red belts if you've unlocked them. Some of the circuits in our base are so bad that I feel like they would instantly kill an actual professional Factorio player. Checking our map, the nearest actual oil field has quite a few biters around it, but it seemed to be an expansion base. It was only one nest, so we decided to launch a counter-offensive campaign. Well, we have oil, but not really. It's seriously far away from the main base and there's no way we'd be able to secure it right now, considering we can barely secure our main base. So flamethrower turrets are gonna have to wait a little bit. The only real problem with having those two goobers out there killing some biters is that they're not around the base. Sure, they might not be the best at making factories, but think of it as having really low skill pawns in Rimworld. They can't do the most important things, but they can still haul items around and clean and whatnot. And in this case, it would have been really nice to have someone reloading the turrets so I wouldn't have to be doing it. At first it was a minor inconvenience, but our ammo production just couldn't keep up with the amount of biters we had to kill. I was actually spending more time walking around reloading guns than I was actually building the factory. Besides that, we still had a ton of things to work on. I mainly wanted to automate red belts because they're just way too useful to not automate. I also wanted to automate special belt types, but I didn't have the chance because I constantly had to reload weapons. Because of this little cliff, I had to move all the red belt production way down here, wasting even more space in this tiny box we have. Looks like you always need more turrets around here. Can't wait for the logistics mess that is gonna be having to automatically reload all of them with a belt around the entire base. Feast your eyes on some absolutely demonic spaghetti. This is the kind of stuff Troopin sees in his nightmares. At least now we had the beginnings of automating special belt types. Still had to do some things, however. I was putting both the underground belt and the splitters in the same place, so I was gonna have to separate them in order to upgrade them to their red variants. And then, believe it or not, I get interrupted by biters again. It's seriously starting to be annoying having to refill all my turrets by hand, but it's not like I have a choice. Trying to make an automatic reloading belt would be impossible right now. I figured I should try and build some stagger spikes, if that's even what they're called. These little wall structures are supposed to bug out the biters' pathfinding and make them take longer to reach the walls. I have no idea if these actually work though. At this point, we had already been recording for 2 hours, and I'm pretty sure we were just going insane. So I decided we should stop for the time being.